Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. If you have visited the website recently, you may see some changes. Luke has gotten older. I have gotten younger. It's just kind of how we're going to do things around here at the new Baltimore Positive. But we got a football game on Monday night, Lucas, and, the Sunday residue would be that I got to sit around the 1 o'clock hour and watch all the our teams play. And, my takeaway from all of this is there's a very good brand of football being played virtually everywhere outside of New York, at this point. But I would also say the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like, as much as you want to go to sleep on them, you're now playing for second place if you lose to Mahomes on Monday night, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look around the rest of the league. I'll also throw the Atlanta Falcons in there, not because they're just as inept as the Giants and Jets in general, but how do you let that happen 2 weeks in a row? A double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. But you're right at talking about Pittsburgh. I mean, do I think they look dominant? No, but they're 3-0, and they have Ben Roethlisberger again, and it's looked better than it did last year, where you give Mike Tomlin all the credit that we did, considering they had Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph trying to play quarterback for
Dude,
a team
I never would have given you Duck Hodges. Like, if you would have quizzed me on that, I would have lost all the money in the world, man. Like, Duck Hodges.
You'd have no reason to, because I think he's back on their practice squad at this point. So it just speaks to what they were dealing with at the
I would have been better
position.
giving you Tommy Maddox or somebody like that.
They may have been better off with Tommy Maddox last year. That's
Terry
how bad
Hanratty. I don't know, man. I'll come up with something.
and it's not as though they looked great against Houston, who the Texans. You look at the draw they've had with the Chiefs, Ravens, and then going to Pittsburgh. Just absolutely brutal. 0-3, trying to dig themselves out of a hole, much like they had to 2 years ago with a poor start. But you have to give Pittsburgh credit, and Ben has looked at the very least close to being the old Ben Roethlisberger. I thought he looked rusty in week 1 and came on pretty well. And he's played for the most part winning football and hasn't made a lot of mistakes. So I still, it doesn't change my feelings about the Ravens clearly being the class of the AFC North, but I said at the beginning of the year, I didn't think they were going to run away with it like they did last year, where they won by 6 games in the AFC North. It'll be a little bit more of a competition there. And Pittsburgh, to this point, keeping the pressure on the Ravens. And Cleveland beating Cincinnati and Washington isn't exactly compelling evidence to think that they're suddenly this viable, really good team. But maybe it does lend a little more credit to how the Ravens disposed of the Browns in week 1, considering the Browns have won 2 in a row since then. So it's a better division as a whole. I think even Cincinnati, who played just a terrible football game with Philadelphia on Sunday, a game that ended up in a tie that I was watching with my brother-in-law, and you can imagine how that made that Philadelphia sports fan feel. But Joe Burrow looks pretty darn good. So I think, again, that's a team you play later in the season, they're going to be better and better, even though overall I don't think they're going to be very good. They're going to be better than the Bengals were last year. So the pressure is definitely there from the rest of the division, at least from a wins-losses standpoint. And that just makes Monday night and the stakes and what that means, not just as it relates to the Chiefs and home field advantage and the number 1 seed, but it does keep a little more pressure on the division if you're the Ravens.
There's some weird feeling I had right around 1 o'clock. I'm building this website, and I'm up all night. My sleeves are rolled up. God bless Chris Pike and Kristen Dorn for enduring me over the weekend, and my wife and my cat, my son, anybody else in my life. Poor Don Moeller and Dennis Colatzos and everybody else. But, I piled into bed at 1 o'clock with my laptop to sort of like red zone it. And for a minute, just for like a nanosecond, it reminded me of when we didn't have a team. You know what I mean? And it's the weirdest thing because I'm not going to the game, right? So I'm not going to the game this week, and I'm going to pile in and watch it on TV. And maybe I'd had some weird Oilers dreams because I was there last week, and this really weird old Oiler picture showed up on my screen from the old WNST site from back when I wrote the book about my father in 2006 because I'm finding all this stuff. But, man, there was just this weirdest feeling. It's like it's a Sunday, and we don't have a game. and I don't have a game to go to. And it was just that one moment of like, oh yeah, we play on Monday night. That's right. We're the best team. That's right. Sorry about that. Right. And so I had that moment, and then like I've been going back and forth with various guests this week. Right. So I'll give a little pluggage for this week. That I don't know how many times, if you give me a quarter jar, and fine me every time I say the R word this week. I mean, I got admonished by a longtime Washington media mogul who texted me back and said, you can't use that word anymore. And I'm like, but I'm going to wind up using it all week. All I'm doing is talking to Washington football team people all week. So I got that going on. So there's all of this weird stuff. We are the best team, though, right? And this is the only chance the Ravens will have this year to be the best team for a while, right? You lose this game, you're going to be paddling backwards as whatever you are. First off, you're second place in your division, right? So, and we're familiar with that. And Joe Flacco made a career of that. So did Brian Billick, other than 1 year, right? I mean, we've never been the best team around here. And I know I had to pinch myself a couple times last year, late at night, broadcasting with you from the LA Memorial Coliseum, looking up at a 45-6 scoreboard, right? Like in purple Barney outfits or whatever the hell those things were. That I'm glad they're not wearing on Monday night, although I'm thumbs down on the black. You know how I feel about that.
Oh, man.
Purple's
Get
the
off
color,
my
dog.
lawn. How do you not like the black jersey? I'll say this. I don't like the black jerseys with the black pants as much as everyone else. Give me the white pants or even give me the purple pants.
Let me say something right now for anybody who listens to us, who should be watching us on YouTube. Luke Jones is room rated. He had an incredible picture, which included the picture of my home at the Inner Harbor behind him. He's now moved into the lounge at the Jones Cafe. And turn behind you. Turn over your shoulder. That two-time champion, they're purple. They're not wearing black. They're not coached by Jerry Clanville. Terrell Suggs is gone. I hope he stays gone.
See, I thought you were going to comment. I thought you were going to comment on the Ninja Turtles on top of
No, I didn't even see them, man. I didn't even 40-year-old virgin nonsense. I'm not even all about that. I got pictures of you and me with the real
brothers,
turtles.
For the record.
No. You and I met the real Ninja Turtles in Minnesota.
That's very true.
And after 3 drinks, they were and not enough food, they were the real Ninja Turtles. So I met them at the Mall of America, where they live, But Luke, there is a fear about this, having watched, watching Russell Wilson run around as an example, right? Like I watch football all day. Watching Ben Roethlisberger, where my wife, I tweeted this last year. I know I tweeted it. It wasn't very nice. There was a point late last year where Duck, whatever his name, was playing. And my wife said, Roethlisberger looks fat and old. That's what she said to me back in December. And I tweeted out, Roethlisberger looks fat and old. And I'm thinking, he probably won't look fat and old in September because that's just the way this usually works, right? He'll whine about his leg being broken and his feelings being hurt, his motorcycle crashed, and all of this. But he's going to come back out. And you know what she said on Sunday? She's like, wow, he looks like he's in shape. He looks a little thin. He looks good. Yeah, And then he's touching passes and feeling his way out, and the play breaks down, and there's Juju, and I tell you, we got to play them later in the month, right?
Sure.
So I feel good about our team. I love the way we played, but that team better show up on Monday night, and they better be 3-0 because then if we're going to have a real season here. And I know Lamar is better than maybe Joe was, or the perception of that, or how good we'll be next week, and how much we beat teams by last year. But this is really, now that we're getting up on this, and all the Sunday games are done, and we watch the Cowboys run around now, and we're trying to figure out who the real teams are. And this Joe Burrow kid looks like he might be able to play a little bit, right? So we should be concerned about that long, maybe more so than Baker Mayfield or the Browns ever getting their act together. But I do feel the significance of this, that you will be playing catch up. The good news would be you and I might be in Kansas City in January having barbecue. But for fans or not fans or whatever. But this is going to be one of those things that determines the narrative of the rest of the year as to whether you're playing for second place and chasing the Steelers or whether everybody's chasing you.
Yeah, and see, I'm not quite there yet with the AFC North. I think Pittsburgh's better. I don't think Pittsburgh is in the same category as the Ravens or the Chiefs or I also think it's worth mentioning New England with how they've looked, even in defeat last week against Seattle.
And
That's looked
I
good.
dislike Cam Newton. There couldn't have been a better
I hear you, but
organization than, but
he's
he's
played well.
no, no,
It's
no.
been a good
He's
pick
a
so far.
Super Bowl quarterback who could have
Right.
won a Super Bowl, who played out of his mind that year with very mediocre talent around him, right? He's had his feelings hurt now. He's been thrown out. He's with the genius. 1 yard away from winning last week in the middle of the night while I was eating my etouffee and doing radio with you in Houston, at the courtyard on the flooded freeway. I have no thoughts at all that going to New England, when we get there, they will be 6-3, 7-2. They're going to be good. Cam's going to be, we're going to be 6 and 7, 8, whatever we're going to be when we get there in November. I have not been a believer 2 weeks into this that the Patriots are going to be 2-6. I don't believe that at all.
Yeah, I don't either. And I guess my overall point that I'm trying to make as far as how it relates to the Ravens right now, this opportunity against Kansas City, and I wrote about this at WNST.net last
and
week,
Baltimore positive
as we're leading into. Correct. I'm glad you mentioned that. But I feel like this game. I mean, through the start of this incredible Lamar Jackson era, going back to midway through 2018, Flacco's hurt. They put Lamar in after the bye week. They do what they did against Cincinnati, and since then he's lost 3 games in the regular season. There are 2 inconvenient truths about this football team under Lamar Jackson as the star starting quarterback. What are they? They're 0-2 in the postseason. They're 0-2 against Kansas City. There's not a darn thing they can do about the playoff chatter until January. We're 3 months away from that still. So you can set as many records. You can go 15-1 this year. You can do all these different things in the regular season like they did last year, and you're going to have a segment of not just the fans, but I think observers in general who are going to say, that's great, but what about January? And guess what? There's not a whole lot of recourse or response that the Ravens can have there to argue that, because they went 14-2 last year, and they were the best team in the regular season last year. And then we saw what happened against Tennessee. Now, that's what brings you to Monday night, talking about Kansas City. And yes, everything you mentioned was true about Pittsburgh. And you look at Tennessee, they're 3-0. Let's not forget Buffalo, who nearly collapsed on Sunday, but then Josh Allen, who looks terrific. Looks like he's taken another step forward, so don't sleep on them. But I think even those teams would still look at the Ravens and the Chiefs right now as the gold standard in the AFC until further notice. The best regular season team, and of course the team that won the Super Bowl last year. So if you're the Ravens, I can't help but look at this in comparison to the past. 2000, those coming of age moments for those 2000 Ravens, beating Jacksonville in week 2, going to Adelphia Coliseum midway through week 11, I think it was off the top of my head, and beating the Titans. Trent Dilfer having the awful pick 6, and then they drive back down the field and they win the game on a last-second touchdown. You think of 2012 and everything that led up to that. Flacco in Pittsburgh the year before. The game against New England early in the season, the Torrey Smith game with his brother passing away, how that served as a tiny little morsel of revenge for Billy Cundiff and Lee Evans. You think about, as I called it, a coming-of-age moment, and I think Monday night is that opportunity for the Ravens, that they can't do anything about the 0-2 postseason record, and Lamar can't win a playoff game, and John Harbaugh hasn't won a playoff game since January 2015, and all that talk that we've talked about off and on since mid-January when you're talking about this current football team. They can at least say, but we beat Kansas City, but we beat the defending champs, the team that got us each of the last 2 years, the team that is responsible for 2 of Lamar Jackson's 3 regular season losses. I think it does feel like that kind of game that can be a potential stepping stone. So, but everything you said was right in terms of if you lose, and then you're looking at Pittsburgh being ahead of them in the division. You're looking at being tied with Cleveland, whether you buy wins over the Bengals and the Washington football team is anything special or not. Statistically speaking, still tied in the wins and losses department, even though the Ravens would have the tiebreaker. And you look around at the rest of the conference and
you're
see
just
teams that
another
are
team
3-0.
at that point for a little while. You're not the 14-2 flash team anymore. if you don't win. I mean, I just and I think they can win 5 more in a row, and it's fine. But the notion that they'll have to go to Kansas City and do it on the road in January until further notice,
Yeah.
and for all of these teams, there feels like there's real have not in the NFL. And whatever week the Bills lose to a lowly Jets team, right, or the Ravens lose to the Bengals or the Browns, or when those kinds of upsets happen this year, they're really going to tilt things, because it does feel like the Ravens have no business losing to the Bengals, right? Or, maybe Steelers would be a split or something like that in a division. But it really feels like these bad teams have no chance of beating good teams to some degree. And that shouldn't be all that unfamiliar. But if you're looking for help on the outside, I don't know who's going to beat the Chiefs in their own division, right?
Yeah, and that's a fair point. Again, I'm not nearly as concerned about the Ravens as they relate to the rest of the AFC if they lose this game. But it is very much, hey, we're talking about one first-round bye at this point, with 7 teams in the playoffs starting this year. So that home field
And we're
advantage,
also
which
talking about whether January matters in regard to whether there is a home field or not, right? Like, we're playing for home field.
that's a fair point too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, we're playing for home field, but we don't even have home field tonight, right, to win the game,
Sure.
because there's no breathing down on Patrick Mahomes. I don't know what the benefit of all of that is, and there'll be nerds like you figuring out the Saber metrics of empty stadiums and how it's affected Cam Newton differently than Lamar Jackson. I don't know, but I do know the carrot for all of our life has been, we win this, we get to have the game in Baltimore in January. I mean, that's a little out the window, but it might not be out the window given where the world might be in January. And hopefully they're still playing football, because I know 4 weeks ago we were debating that, right? So at least we have this moment where Lamar and Mahomes, I mean, I will be very, very thankful for that. Even though you're going to the game and I'm not, I will enjoy the game on the couch, eating Rofo chicken, right, and tweeting away. And I'm thankful we have a game. And I will go back to what my pal Mark Vandermeer said when he wound up in the press box on opening night. He said, I was just happy there was a game and I could be there, right?
Sure, no question about it. And I think the home field advantage conversation is interesting. In fact, I was texting with our pal Chris Pica late Sunday night after the Saints game, of course, a team that he has quite a history with. And he pointed out the Saints playing in their own stadium, playing in their own building, had issues with some hard counts at the line of scrimmage from Aaron Rodgers late in that game. So think about this. We're talking about home field advantage and number 1 seed, and the Ravens hosting Kansas City. And yet the home team in that setting had some trouble with some hard counts from Aaron Rodgers, the visiting quarterback, at the end of the game. So it does put in perspective home field advantage not being the same as it normally is now.
Well, we got to bring Peter DeLutis in on this to get the Vegas spread on this, because
exactly.
This has been the theory of Vegas forever, is that our noise tonight might be worth 3 points against Patrick Mahomes. And now, is it not? Who's got the advantage? What difference would it make where the game is? And it would make a difference in this way. Kansas City's already started letting people in.
Yeah.
Kansas City coming here and our state shut down, that might not make a hill of beans, but you might not want to go out there where, those hillbillies might let 50,000 people in the stadium in January, right? Like, and then all of a sudden, Lamar does have a road game in January, for real.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard to predict more than 3 months out as far as even knowing what that's going to look like around the league, not just here in Baltimore. I think it is. This is where I'd be remiss if I didn't point out 250 family members of Ravens players, coaches, and members of the organization will be in attendance on Monday night.
I text Eric DeCosta and ask him if I can move in. I'm being honest. And I said, if I move in today, do I qualify for family by Monday?
You'd have to do the self-quarantine for 14 days or whatever it is.
Well, I hope the seats are good. I hope you get a box lunch.
John Harbaugh did joke about being interested to see how much noise they can make on Monday night. I think from a more, from a standpoint of how it relates to fans, it's a nice step. You hope it's a positive step in terms of being able to host. They had planned over the summer for the potential of 7,500 fans, roughly 10% of capacity. So we'll see. Hopefully that goes smoothly. And we're talking about a limited number of fans being able to go to games in the not too distant future. But again, what that means for January, what this game means in terms of the number 1 seed, I just think this game is really important for the Ravens' mental psyche. or mental psyche, that's redundant, just their psyche in general.
But close is not
But
good. Close, triple
oh yeah,
overtime and losing
yeah,
doesn't
that.
like.
But I'll also and Marcus Peters pointed this out, and
Maybe
he's a
they could
no non.
tie. I feel like I saw that
Oh
on
yeah, I
Sunday.
know, right? my brother-in-law loved that. Believe me, he was over at my place watching it. But I just think if you're talking about this team right now, and look, it's week 3, as Marcus Peters noted, they could lose this game and go 15-1. And would you really be shocked based on how we saw them play last year? Surprised, sure, just because 15-1 is tough. Would I be shocked? No, because I know the true talent level of this football team. But I still go back to the mental block, if you will, of what happened to them last January, knowing that they're 0-2 against the Chiefs, and if they would lose this one, be 0-3, does not mean they couldn't overcome it. Does not mean they wouldn't still secure home field advantage. Does not mean they couldn't go to Arrowhead in January and finally get the monkey off their back at that point. But I feel like if we're going to break down games in terms of importance, it doesn't get more important than this. And I say that with no disrespect to Pittsburgh, who I think will be better, but I don't think they're going to be 13-3, 14-2 territory like the Ravens and the Chiefs. I kind of anticipate those teams being. So I still think the Ravens in the division are completely fine, even if they lose this one. But I still go back to, this is the only game that you can kind of fire back at your critics a little bit, right? 0-2 against Kansas City, 0-2 against, or 0-2 in the playoffs. You can't do anything about the playoffs. They could win every game to this point, and they're still going to be 0-2 in the playoffs.
It is amazing outside of Baltimore what that resume looks like, right? What you just said, right?
It's extraordinary. I mean, this team is fantastic. I said this. And I'll say this now. You can check this out at WNST.net and Baltimore Positive. I picked Kansas City 30-27 for this game. Honestly, I about flipped a coin. That's how I felt about it. But part of this is the Ravens have been so great. I haven't picked against them other than the Week 17 glorified exhibition game where Robert Griffin III was running around and the Ravens rested their top 6 or 7 starters. Other than that game, which I picked Pittsburgh just because who cared anyway, I picked Kansas City for this one, but I said it was a coin flip, and I haven't picked against the Ravens otherwise since last October. That just shows how much, and you know me, Nestor, I've picked against them in plenty of big games over the years. I'm not a unconditional homer that's just going to pick them to win every week.
Like I do.
But, I look at this game and, the couple things that concern me besides the letdown of knowing how anticipated this game was, and you have 250 people in the crowd. I do look at the secondary with the Tavon Young injury. Not that I think they'll be fine in the big picture losing him. They proved that last year, but I don't like that unrest happening so recently with, okay, was Jimmy Smith going to match up with Travis Kelce, but maybe now he needs to play outside corner, or Anthony Averett's going to have to play real snaps. Deshaun Elliott has played well to this point, but has he really been tested all that much?
Well, Anthony Averett will be a guy who is tested, period.
Right. I mean, Andy Reid
is going to play a factor in whether they win or lose on Monday night.
I mean, he's going to play, right. I mean, whether they have Jimmy Smith trying to lock down Travis Kelce and traveling with him, you're going to see Averett play some outside corner because at least in the dime package, I expect we're going to see Jimmy playing that hybrid role. Now, he's not going to be playing that hybrid role probably as much as he would if Tavon Young was healthy and playing. But you look at that. And the other thing I do look at is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. If you go back and look at the last couple years, those Ravens-Chiefs games, go back and look how many catches their running backs made. And I think a big part of that is not just that there were some issues at inside linebacker with the coverage, but the Ravens love to blitz so much. They love to send numbers. That's how they get pass rush. That's how they get pressure. This is not a 4-man pass rush kind of defense. We know that. That's been the case for a couple years now.
And once they get up the field,
that you try to. Andy Reid is just so good, and I don't want to label these as weaknesses, but for the Ravens defense, they're relative weaknesses, and Andy Reid is going to test and poke and prod at those perceived weak spots. And I love the potential of Patrick Queen and Malik Harrison, but Travis Kelce or backs coming out of the backfield, some of the routes that Kansas City uses, and Wink Martindale talked about the fact that their offense is so good at stretching you not just vertically, but they stretch you horizontally. And I think that's where some young inside linebackers could potentially get in trouble. So that's not to say I think the Ravens are being blown out or anything crazy like that. I'm picking a 3-point game, but I do look at the situation in the secondary. If they had 2 more weeks to kind of iron out the kinks there, and then they were playing Kansas City, I'd feel way better about it, to the point where I'd probably pick the Ravens without even hesitating very much. But I don't know. There's just something about that. And then on the other side of the ball, the interior offensive line just hasn't been quite good enough for me to feel that they're going to play at that near perfect level that you need to play.
Well, are they going to get the
against that
4th and
Kansas
2
City
tonight that they
offense.
go for? From the 38-yard line, are they going to get the 4th and 2? Are
Sure,
they?
sure.
That's the play that matters. Because if they don't get it, that flips the game. And that flipped the game
It
against
serves as a
Tennessee.
turnover.
It flipped it flips the game when that doesn't go well. And that went well with Marshall Yanda, right?
No question, no question. So, and again, when I throw these things out there, that doesn't mean I'm panicking about it. We're talking about two teams.
Don't worry, I'll make fun of you tomorrow when the Ravens win tonight.
It's
I have
fine.
no problem,
it's fine.
bro. You know,
and,
picking against the Ravens.
As I
Luke's
noted
picking against the Ravens.
As I noted in my 5 predictions for Monday night, if the Ravens win, I have no idea when I'm going to pick against them again. And I also noted I did pick them to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. So
well, Philly on you. No press pass. You think they're going to lose? Stay home. I'll go to the game.
So if I'm really the heel because I don't think they're going 16-0, well, then I'm a heel because
like
I know
Roddy
how this
Piper
works
and Jerry Lawler all. You know, Lawler was a Browns fan, so that's probably coming out.
There's no question. But I think this is going to be a great football game. I think Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes are absolutely going to put on the show that everyone's hoping they do. And I started before I revealed my pick, I noted that picking against either Mahomes or Lamar at this point feels pretty foolish. So I guess I'm
going on the internet and I'm going to say you picked against the Ravens.
I mean,
I hope your feelings are hurt tomorrow morning.
You've never picked against the Ravens. Other than like 2015, where
there was that one time when Mark Gibrota was, you know when I picked against
Jacksonville
the Ravens
back in the day, right?
So, well, this is a good one because this will promote Baltimore Positive too. So, the week that my wife was at the lowest point of her illness in 15, Flacco got injured, and then my wife sort of went into like a bit of a coma for about a month where she wasn't heard from. And it was right after the Flacco injury happened around Thanksgiving, right? This was around Christmas. And my wife was in and out of the hospital, and the Ravens were playing the Steelers. And
the Ryan Mallett game.
She insisted that I go to the game, and I had an extra ticket. It was a play out the string. And Thomas Dolby, the musician who lived in Baltimore, I had him on the show. He had never been to a Ravens game. He didn't own a Ravens hat. He had said to me in his British accent, it's the one thing that would make me feel like I'm from Baltimore, and I'm like, okay, that's a terrible Thomas Dolby. Don't shoot me, Tom. So I invited him to the game because I had a ticket. My wife was, unavailable, and my wife's like, invite Thomas Dolby. She was sitting in the hospital. She's like, go to the game with him, invite him. And he's like, I think I can make it. He met me at the condo. I gave him one of the Marvin Lewis hats because it fit him. It was one of there's a gold B on it from 1997 or 98. I gave it to him. We went to the game together. And the whole way over, we were talking about like David Bowie and Live Aid and my wife and cancer and all this stuff. But I remember saying to him, listen, this isn't a real Ravens game, okay? Like I'm going to, they're playing the Steelers and it looks like the Ravens and the Steelers, but there's no chance they're going to win. They're playing a team that's way better. They have this third-string bum of a quarterback.
Who they just signed, I think, 10 days earlier.
Steelers are going into the playoffs. They need to win this game. There's no way that the Ravens are going to win today. So I will tell you that was the one day that I was sure the Ravens weren't going to win.
Yeah.
And Thomas Dolby, still to this day, he always says he was the good luck charm. He's been to one Ravens game, and the Ravens beat the Steelers with a third-string quarterback.
So there you go.
So no, I'm not picking against the Ravens on Monday night, but I have trepidation. They're the Super Bowl champs. They come back from 24-0. We do not have our crowd beating down on them. I mean, that was the one thing we said when we get him here. Wait till he finds our place. And so for that, I think it does eliminate an advantage we would have. But I'm not going to pick against the Ravens. I'm going to let you do that and be the bad guy.
Oh, and to be very clear, again, I said this is a coin flip in my mind, and the crowd portion of it, I look at something very specific. The Ravens love to use those amoeba fronts where there are 7 or 8 guys at the line of scrimmage, and who's dropping in the coverage, who's pressuring, who's going to delay blitz there. Those are the kind of things that a quarterback has to diagnose at the line of scrimmage and look for tendencies and tells, and know where his hot is and all of that. That becomes so much easier for Patrick Mahomes in this setting compared to 71,000 fans getting lubed up all day long, lathered up for an 8:15 primetime game. That you just don't have that. And that's not to say that, I mean, if we're talking in the next 24 hours and the Ravens won by 10 points, I'm not going to sit here with any level of surprise whatsoever. They're a damn good football team. They're a great football team. They've proven that over the last calendar year. But I do look at that element as far as something that you're trying to figure out that swings one way or the other, that under normal circumstances, I'm picking the Ravens to win this game. But I just don't like the timing of the Tavon Young injury and the tweaks that are necessary there. And also, even though the pass rush did come alive against Houston in the second half, once again, relying on the blitz a whole lot, and look at Patrick Mahomes' career numbers against the blitz, and that doesn't add up incredibly well.
John
either.
Harbaugh thinks your observations are phooey, and so does Wink Martindale. So
he would, and hey,
that's
we're
why
all
they play the
guessing.
game. That's
We're
why they
all
have to play the game.
guessing. I mean, that's what it is. I basically said, other than the glorified exhibition game and the finale last year against Pittsburgh, I haven't picked them to lose since the Seattle game last October. So, not you can't just you can't go on and think they're going to win every single game.
With a name
maybe
like
they will.
Luke,
Maybe
he's got a dark
6-7.
side. The Force. Has moved to the dark side.
I
red
like the
side.
bad guys in pro wrestling anyway. Ric Flair, and I mean.
Well, I want to leave with this. I sat around all day Sunday watching football, right? So Thursday night I fell asleep on the Miami game and the Beard Fest and all that stuff, right? Chicago, come back with Nick Foles. Buffalo, come back from ahead to win, right?
Josh
Tennessee,
Allen looks great, by the way.
Yeah, unbelievable and tough, right? Tennessee, I mean, he gave the dude the face. It was crazy. Tennessee, they come back, they win, right? The Patriots and I still can't get over Vegas Raiders. But the Steelers are what they are. The Eagles tie. There's all – and then the afternoon game, the Dallas game at night, and seeing Russell Wilson and Green Bay and New Orleans. All of these games, the league's been good, man. It really has been worthwhile to sit around in a way that I didn't feel like baseball was that way. And you and I can have that argument. I know you were at the ballpark plenty. Basketball and hockey have left me a little, leaving something to be desired. Football, I don't know. Football has felt like the only normal thing going on in my life in the middle of a plague.
Yeah, and that's fair. And I also will throw out there, as we always have these kinds of conversations, there's a much more limited inventory of NFL games. Even baseball, a truncated season, they still played 60 games. It's 16. This feels normal. They didn't start late. Unlike the NBA and the NHL, not saying that they didn't make a wise decision. They're not playing in a bubble. So even if there aren't fans in many of these venues, the surroundings still look familiar. It's still the Ravens field and stadium, for example. But it really does speak to how well these teams did to prepare. And look, we can joke about the Jets and the Giants, and certainly a team like San Francisco would say, well, look how we've been ravaged by injuries. I don't think the injuries are just explained by the lack of preseason games, but I think overall, the overall product that we've seen does lend itself to those who've argued against the need for 4 preseason games. I think at the very least, you're going to see that reduced, or you should. And I felt that way before this, and seeing how good the play has been overall just reinforces the fact that they don't need as much time to prepare. They need time to prepare, but they don't need as much time, and you don't need the 4 fake football games for every team. I mean, I think that's obvious, because you're absolutely right. We've seen a level of play that has been very representative. It's weird not having the fans. We understand that. It's not perfect. It's not ideal. But the football itself,
they're doing their jobs. They're professional, right?
It's been very professional. And I think it's very much a testament to the work that these players put in back in the spring and early summer when they were on their own from an individual standpoint, as far as working out and making sure they were in the Zoom meetings, understanding that the spring is voluntary other than the typical mandatory mini camp that's 3 days for veterans. So these guys put in the work, and the coaches figured out a way to make it work. And yeah, we can talk about the Dan Quinns and the Adam Gases of the league that, let's face it, they were on the hot seat even before coronavirus became a thing, and everything that happened in the spring and
I'm not
summer.
even sure who the Giants coach is, so I can't even speak to that. So,
but we knew there'd be bad teams. That's the case every year. But by and large, you look at the overall product, and it's been very good. And you look at how some of these guys have played. I mean, we mentioned Josh Allen. Russell Wilson's been unbelievable. I mean, at this point, you look at him 3 weeks in, and look, 3 weeks in, talking about MVP discussion is silly, but look at the number of touchdown passes he's thrown already.
especially
I mean,
when
he
you're
had 5
talking about
touchdown
anybody
passes
other
on
than the
Sunday.
two guys getting together tonight, though, too,
No
right?
question.
I mean, the fact that everybody else is in this mix is incredible.
Yeah, and maybe Lamar throws 6 touchdowns and Mahomes throws 5 tonight, and we're talking a different game in terms of the MVP talk. But it does speak to how high the quality of play has been around the league, and that's great. I mean, we know this isn't perfect. We'd all love to be in the stadium on Monday night. That's obvious, but people can still sit around the TV and enjoy what should be a fantastic football game, and a game that, whether it's played in Kansas City or Baltimore come January, I do think is an AFC Championship preview.
Now, look, man, because you're getting a box lunch tonight, and because I had some etouffee last week. If you want to go to Fadley's before the game on the way down, I'll meet you over there. I'll get you crab cake. I mean, you won't have a beer before the game because you're a professional, but I want to make sure you're well fed when you're here. You're not eating tourist crab cakes when you're downtown, okay? I went and had a Fadley's crab cake on Friday. I put it up on the internet, and I'm telling you, it was good for my soul, you know what I mean, for a weekend. So I'm just letting you know. Dude, hang in there, get some rest. We'll be back after it, I know, in the aftermath of the game. Luke Jones will be tweeting. He is one of the few, the proud, the 30 people that will be at the Ravens game on Monday night. He's putting me in the corner of the press box on the moon at FedEx Field next week because he doesn't want to go to Landover, to Raljon, to Largo next week. So I'll be doing the road duties, and that gets me pretzels in Philadelphia, which is the only reason. Maybe the cheesesteaks too. Maybe a tasty cake or two. But I'll be in Philly in a couple weeks. Luke's doing the home games. He's Baltimore Luke on Twitter. All of our sponsors from Planet Fitness and our friends at the Brick Family, our friends at Taharco, even with the old school label. I've got to go pick some ice cream up this week. The pumpkin latte flavor, they tell me, is going to be live. Taharka, serving up social change one scoop at a time. Our friends at Royal Farms. I discovered the chicken tenders. I had never, full disclosure, Frank Schilling, Ed Stronsky, everybody, the entire Kemp family, I had never had the tenders. I always get the chicken, I always get the wings, I always get the breast, I always get the legs, always get the Western fries and a roll. I've been getting the gravy lately because I found out about it on the internet. So I'm going to have some chicken, and I might just have the chicken tenders. That's what I'm just going with that tonight, I think.
They're delicious.
They are delicious.
I love
Thank
them.
Thank you. And they have sandwiches now too, but and they're good too. But I'm telling you, I'm stretching out because I've just been eating the chicken for 20 years. I went strips. They looked good. I'm like, give me a couple of those. And I took them in the car, and I gave my wife a bite. She was driving. I gave her a bite. She's like, hey, that's really good. Why don't we get those? And I'm like, I don't know. I just get the chicken because I'm a fuddy-duddy. You know that. Our friends at Sporticulture, I have my Sporticulture hat on. Court's going to send me some flowers over, but he's afraid my cat's going to eat them. So he sent me the black magma lamp this is black for the end, like the black steam coming off for the end of Patrick Mahomes on Monday night. So we're hoping for that. Sporticulture selling flowers, really cool stuff. Make sure you go out and check them out as well as our friends at Liberty Pure. When my water heater was corrosive and about to blow up and flood my building, Doug Workman and his group stepped in. They came down, socially distanced, masked, the whole deal, took care of it. I now have hot running water, and I need that to wash my hands and stay safe during a plague because that's what we're in right now. But we're going to play football. Luke's going to be there. I'm going to be here. We're all going to be together, and we're all going to come together at the new BaltimorePositive.com. We're launching the new website into the overnight. You'll be seeing it very, very soon. I am Nestor. He is Luke. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We're up all night. It's a Purple Monday. Stay with us.